My Doctor Said What is a program for health information. Be careful that if you want treatment and diagnosis of disease, you need to go to your local healthcare provider. Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of white coat blues. Have you ever felt that? Felt that nervous anxiety? This is Dr. Frank with My Doctor Said What? Trying to make you understand what your healthcare provider is saying to you when you're afraid to ask questions. You don't know what to say. You don't know what he's saying. So for better communication, for health and wellness information, I want to give you some tips. First, we'll start with today's topic. We're going to be talking about the other side of the stethoscope, how a doctor feels when we go to a healthcare provider. But first, we'll do some fun facts. Couple fun facts. Head injuries and injuries in general, traumatic injuries. Anytime you have somebody that falls down, whether it's a young person in football or baseball or an old person when they fall and they tell you, oh, they're okay, and maybe they don't have a lot of visible bruising in that for a little while, make sure that they are not talking in weird sentences or they seem disoriented or what. You got to watch concussions. Always watch concussions. Serious matter. So if in doubt, go to your healthcare provider or the emergency room, especially for older folks. If they start saying, oh, they're kind of grumpy, but they're saying, ooh, this is a beautiful day, that's wonderful, or they can't remember what they just did, and they don't have dementia or some type of form of Alzheimer, then you need to take them to the healthcare provider. You don't want them to have a concussion and you not know it. Same way with your younger kids in sports. If they get a head trauma, make sure you take them. And if they have a pain in an arm, a leg, any limb, shoulder, collarbone, whatever that seems to get worse or has any swelling, you want to get an x-ray. You want to make sure that they're okay for the bone to set right and all those good things. Next of all, let's talk about a few things. Dental, gum, and tooth changes. Any changes you see in the body that happen rapidly, all of a sudden you wake up and a tooth's hurting. As you age, your teeth grind down and they fit differently. That's why you want to have a regular, at least annual, if not semi-annual, dental appointment. And that's to make sure that you're not having pressure. You can have pressure on a tooth all of a sudden that you never had before, and it could cause a toothache, which can lead to inflammation and abscesses, a lot of bad things, or cracked tooth that you didn't know about, cracked it on something you ate. You bruise, believe it or not, your gums and even the bones can bruise. So you want to make sure to get your regular checkups. But if you have any changes, bleeding from your gums, that's unusual, especially if you're flossing regularly and brushing your teeth 3 times a day at least, and making sure that you rinse with something like peroxide a couple times a day, you'll find out, 3% solution, you'll find out that you shouldn't have any big changes. If you do, you need to call your dentist before your appointment and get checked out. Moles on your skin, freckles, dark spots, any real changes in those with summer sun, any of that, even in the winter, you need to get it checked out. You want to make sure you're not ended up with something like skin cancers of different types, and you catch them early and you've got great treatment options. Catch them late and they can really be serious, really serious, even life-threatening. So you want to do that. Changes in your hair. If you start losing a lot of hair, and I'm not talking about male pattern baldness, that happens to a lot of us, including yours truly, but you want to look at that. You want to be careful about that. It can be a mineral deficiency, a vitamin deficiency, a hormone change. A lot of women, when they start into perimenopause, will find they're getting thinner hair. It can be any kind of dietary issues. So there's just a plethora of things that can be wrong. But you need to talk to your health care provider about that. Any changes in your nails can show that you're having issues. If you got good circulation, you could push on your nail and it'll do that wonderful go from pink to white real quick and back, pink to white real quick. Same way with your toes. If you don't have a good circulation, or your feet are always cold, or your hands are always cold, mention that to your healthcare provider. Want to make sure you're not early on circulatory diseases. And with that, my number one predictor for you men out there is heart healthy is heart healthy. If you start having ED symptoms, erectile dysfunction, before you're in your mid to late 40s, and even occasionally, and I'm not talking about erectile dissatisfaction, that's just when you're unhappy with whatever, you're not as young as you used to be. But if you're having trouble maintaining an erection, getting an erection, you're not having multiple nighttime erections, then there's a lot of things that could be wrong, and a lot of them relate to cardiac disease and hardening of the arteries, arterial cirrhosis, the plaque building up. And the first thing you'll find is circulation in your hands, feet, and in your little Johnson. So let me tell you, make sure if you're starting to have any issues with ED, see your healthcare provider. And with that, I want to tell you a little story about one of my visits. I went to school for 11 years, and when I got out, a lot of things have been neglected, from my cars to my clothes to my apartment to everything. Just so busy. Got out of medical school. Like I said, been in school 11 years. Thank God I started early. But I went and I thought, I had a little issue, a medical issue that I hadn't taken care of for a little while that was irritating. I was pretty sure it wasn't serious, but never diagnose yourself. And I had a great professor in dermatology. Great lectures. Great guy, older fellow. And I said, I'm going to go see him. I got a lot of faith in him. So I called his office, made an appointment. A little bit of a delicate situation, so I thought, I trusted him, felt good about him. Make sure you trust your healthcare provider. You have a good communication with them. You feel comfortable with them. If not, find a different healthcare provider. It's really important. I mean, this is one of the most important decisions you're going to make in your life, is who you have as your healthcare provider, especially your primary care physician, as well as a specialist that you go to. So I went in, like all of you. I didn't get any professional courtesy. Went in, had to fill out the 5,000 pages of, I had my health changed. Well, sure, my health changed, or I wouldn't be here. And all your insurance information, your mother's maiden name, your birth date, your social security number. I tell you, if healthcare providers stole your identity, they'd have an easy time. But thank God for HIPAA. But I could say right now that you need to fill all that out carefully as best you can, even though it's a real pain in the rear. Any family history, any of the pertinent details. And when I was done, they called me back to come into the examining room. I went in, typical 65-degree room. You could chill meat in there. And they handed me a small gown about the size of a bad rain poncho and said, strip down. The doctor will be in here momentarily. And so I ended up taking my clothes off rapidly to make sure that I wasn't caught in the middle of my change like most of you. Put my little gown on, which basically was a backless poncho that went down to about halfway to my knees. So as I sat there, like most of you, under 10,000 watts of fluorescent light, in the most embarrassing situation you can find yourself in a lot of times, in walked my physician. And it was not my dermatology professor. And I said, hello. And a wonderful, attractive, young dermatologist came in. Nothing wrong with that. And I said, hi. She said, hi. And she said, what's the problem? And I said, I have a... I described the issue in medical terms, and she said, so you have a skin tag on your anal opening. And I said, you are correct. She was not impressed with my medical vocabulary, and I was still taken back. And I said, look, you're not, who are you? I was wanting to see Dr. N. And she said, he retired. And I said, what do you mean he retired? And she said, I'm his daughter. And I said, okay. And she said, well, what can I do for you? And I said, go get your father. Not being sexist or anything, I just, given the situation, would have felt more comfortable. But turns out she was a wonderful healthcare provider. But as most of us, she's a human being. And she said, well, let's take a look. And she asked me to lay down on my back, put my legs up, and she all of a sudden started moving stuff around and trying to take a look. And That's really not a great position, and I had tried to examine it with a mirror earlier, and she was having difficulties, not enough hands with her gloves, trying to get everything out of the way and still take a good look. And the more and more of that went on, the more embarrassed I became. And so, like all of you, we're human beings too, and I was on the wrong side of this stethoscope. And so she said finally she called for her nurse, which was another young, attractive person. Now we have 4 hands. I mean, we got enough stuff going on down there. It's almost medical malpractice. Just kidding. I mean, she's totally professional, but it was still nonetheless embarrassing trying to move things around. So finally, I didn't want to be that know-it-all patient, but I said, look, I've done this before. The only way you're going to really get a good look at this is I'm going to have to flip over, do the classic downward dog yoga position, you know, with bent knees, and then everything spreads open and you can see it. All the junk's out of the way, the cheeks are spread. It's really the way to do it. And she said, yeah, no problem. So now I flip around, do the downward dog. I'm looking between this little gown, which is up around my neck by now, so it's really just a bad dickie. And so I look down between my legs, and her and the nurse are laughing, trying to do it quietly, but I totally understood. I mean, it was a funny situation, unfortunately at my expense. But they're kind of giggling, and finally they said, yeah, we see we're fine. Went ahead with I had my derriere up in the air like I just didn't care, and at that point I didn't. And so they went ahead. The procedure went really quickly and well, and she removed the skin tag. It was painless other than to my fragile ego and my sense of modesty. So all healthcare providers have been through being on the other side of the stethoscope. So find one that's got a good sense of humor about it and that you trust, and you'll have a great experience. And that's what you're looking for in your healthcare provider. And with that, this is episode 18 of Dr. Frank. My doctor said, what? Explaining to you so you can have a better understanding of your health and what's being said to you and what questions to ask to have a better health in 2023, 24, and beyond. I'm available on all major platforms. My YouTube podcast comes out every Tuesday right around noon and is available on all major platforms again. All the typical ones, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, all their podcasts. So subscribe, hit the subscribe button and follow me, and let's have a better year in health this year and beyond. Have a great day. Remember, send your comments and questions to Dr. Frank at mdswpod@gmail.com.